My name is Emily. I'm 32 years old, and I live in a quiet town about 50 minutes outside of Boston. Every morning, I brew myself an espresso, catch the weather forecast, and walk one block to my office. I'm the co-founder of a biotech startup in healthcare. Try explaining that to people who think office job means typing numbers into spreadsheets all day. My family never quite got what I do, or maybe they never cared to. To them, I've always been the odd younger sister, the one who dressed plainly, rarely wore makeup, and was always glued to her laptop or in a meeting somewhere. My older sister Claire, 3 years ahead of me, has always been their pride. She's graceful, elegant, soft-spoken, the golden child. In every family photo, I'm just the faint background behind Claire's spotlight. On holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas, the relatives would orbit around her, fawning with comments like, "Claire, you look stunning in that dress," or "Your new boyfriend is a CFO. That's amazing." And me, if anyone even remembered I existed, it was always a passing line. "Oh, Emily, she's doing something with science, right?" Like I was a footnote. I used to believe that if I worked hard enough, stayed out of the spotlight, and carried the weight, one day, my parents would look at me the way they look at Claire. But they never did. All the praise, attention, and hope, those were Claire's. I was distant, dry, hard to talk to. They didn't know that I had stayed at the office past midnight handling a crisis for a $2 million public health contract. They never asked what it felt like to build a company from the ground up with 3 classmates. When people ask me about my family, I just smile faintly and say, "We haven't talked in a while." Not because I'm hiding something, there's just nothing left to say. We've had no contact in over 2 years. No messages, no calls, no birthday texts. Just silence, like a wire cut and never spliced back together. I used to believe family was where you could always return. That illusion shattered on my mother's birthday. It was late March. I had just closed a major funding round with investors from New York. I planned to take 3 days off and go home early, help out like I always did. I called ahead to check in. My dad answered. "I'm coming home early," I said. "Let me know if you need anything picked up or set up." I still remember how he sounded. Not angry, just different. He paused, cleared his throat, and said, "Emily, if possible, don't come home this year." I froze. I thought maybe he was worried I was overworking. "It's okay," I said. "I already cleared my schedule. I want to be there." This time his voice was firmer. "Claire's bringing her new boyfriend. He's a CFO. He's successful. Articulate. Your job, it's hard to explain. If you show up, people will compare. It could get uncomfortable. It's better if you stay." I went cold, my chest tightened, my grip on the phone stiffened. "So you're saying I embarrass you?" I said through clenched teeth. "That I'm not welcome because I don't measure up." He didn't backtrack. In fact, he made it worse. "If you insist on coming, don't call me your father." Then he hung up. No hesitation, no pause. I sat in stunned silence. The espresso cup in my hand had gone cold. I didn't cry. I didn't move. I just sat there staring ahead like my world had cracked open with one sentence. For the first time in my life, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't part of the family anymore. I'd spent years trying to hold us together, and I'd been cut out without a second thought. I stayed seated in my usual chair near the window, early spring sunlight filtering through the curtains, unable to soften the cold I felt inside. His words echoed in my head. "If you insist on coming, don't call me your father." I looked down. My hands were trembling, not from rage, but from something deeper. I had believed that even if I'd never be loved like Claire, at least I was still their daughter. Turns out, I wasn't. I stood up, walked to my desk, and without a second thought, I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. For over 2 years I'd been sending my parents money, covering their electricity, water, internet, even cable. Nearly $6,000 a month, and that's not counting the extras. When Mom said the fridge stopped working, or Dad said his car needed repairs, they never asked if I could manage it. They just said, "Claire's in a tough spot after changing jobs. If you can help, that'd be great." And I helped, quietly, as if it were my job. As if taking responsibility had been some unspoken contract I'd signed the moment I started earning. I opened my bank transaction history and scrolled. The total came into view, $15,720. My chest sank. Not because I regretted any of it, but because even after giving so much, I had still never been enough. I hovered over each expense: electricity, water, internet. Click. One by one, notifications appeared. Auto payment canceled successfully. No alarms, no confirmation prompts, just silence. The same silence I had existed in my whole life. That night, I didn't sleep. Not out of anger, but because I couldn't stop thinking about everything. About how it all happened. About my father's words. About how easily my entire family had set me aside just to impress a man I didn't even know. I'd been compared all my life. But this time it wasn't subtle. This was the first time I was openly rejected, as if my existence itself was inconvenient. My mother's birthday arrived soon after. I didn't call. I didn't send a gift. I didn't post a sweet caption on social media. Not out of revenge, but because I just couldn't pretend anymore. At exactly 5 p.m., as I sat on my balcony sipping peppermint tea, my phone lit up. It was a call from my mother. I stared at the screen for a moment, then let it dim. A text followed seconds later. "Emily, why is the power out? Can you check on it?" I set my tea down. Another message from Dad came in. "No water, no internet. Call the providers. Your mom is losing it." I stared out at the treetops beyond my balcony. Still, quiet. There was no pain, no rage. Just a strange, eerie calm. They hadn't asked if I was okay. Not a single word about the call that changed everything. They just wanted me to do what I always did: fix it. Then a message from Claire popped up. "The Wi-Fi's down. Guests are arriving. Mom's about to cry. What's going on?" I opened my keyboard and typed. 3 weeks ago, Dad told me that if I insisted on coming home, I should stop calling him my father. I'm just honoring that request. If this is inconvenient, maybe find someone else you're proud to introduce. But I didn't send it. I erased the whole message, not because I doubted it, but because I knew it wouldn't matter. They'd hear what they wanted, twist it into something else. I set my phone down and leaned back in the chair, eyes closed. My little apartment was still. No demands, no glares, no guilt. The next day, Claire left a voicemail. "Mom hasn't stopped crying. You ruined everything. Yesterday was so important. Liam met the whole family for the first time. How could you be so selfish?" I listened to the entire thing, then I turned my phone off. For years I hadn't been selfish enough. Now I was. I opened my work email and checked the weekend operations report. One message stood out: New Jersey staff transfer to Boston. Awaiting final approval. I clicked on the attachment, scrolling through the names, until one stopped me. Liam Prescott. I blinked. My heart skipped a beat. I remembered it because just 3 days earlier my mother had casually dropped it in conversation. Claire's boyfriend Liam works at a major company. I squinted at the internal file. Current role: Head of Finance. New Jersey Division pending transfer to Boston HQ. Final approver: Emily Warren, co-founder. I let out a quiet laugh, instinctive disbelieving. The world was smaller than I thought, and what was coming next had only just begun. I sat there, hand resting on the mouse, staring at the screen. My chest felt strangely hollow, like something I'd held onto for far too long had just disappeared. Almost $16,000. Gone. Every cent paid on time. No reminders, no thank yous. Never once had they said, "We appreciate it." Never once. I scrolled back through the payment records. $192.48. Electricity, $136.72. Water, $248.50. Internet and cable month after month. As if I were their invisible accountant, unpaid, unseen, unmentioned. I thought back to the last time I spoke to Mom, maybe a year ago. She'd called after midnight. "Emily, the bathroom pipe burst. Can you call someone to fix it? Claire's on vacation with her boyfriend. You're the only one left. You're the only one left." It had sounded harmless at the time, but it held a bitter truth. I wasn't treated like a daughter. I was just the solution when the people they truly cared about weren't available. And now to be told not to come home, because I might ruin the picture. They had made their priorities crystal clear. All those years, everything I gave was never received with love. I was only remembered when a bill was due, or a mess needed fixing. But when I needed someone, there was no one. My phone lit up, again. A message from my mother. Emily, I know yesterday was a little tense, but if you could handle the internet bill, that would be great. Claire's trying to keep things calm with the guests. I stared at it like a stranger reading someone else's life. No apology, no mention of the cruel rejection from my father, just another request. Business as usual. I didn't reply. Instead, I stepped onto the porch and sat down in the wooden chair. The April sunlight was fading behind Boston's still cold sky. The breeze was crisp, but my mind felt sharper in it. I thought about Liam, Claire's polished, successful boyfriend, and now my soon-to-be subordinate. The same man whose presence had supposedly made my own too awkward to include. The irony. If life were a movie, this would be the best twist of the plot. I went back inside and opened the email. The subject line read, "New hire confirmation, Liam Prescott, Boston office." I clicked. His file came up. Degrees, titles, experience. A resume that read like something Claire would proudly parade at Sunday brunch. Then I saw the photo. There was something familiar. 6 months ago, I had met him briefly at a professional event. He'd shaken my hand and said, "Nice to meet you, co-founder Warren." Neither of us had made the connection, or maybe I just never cared enough about Claire's life to notice who stood beside her. Now I had a choice. Approve the transfer, or reject it. But I didn't need to do anything. Fate had already set the stage. I simply had to watch what would happen when Claire realized her picture-perfect boyfriend now answered to the sister she was ashamed of. The next day, Liam arrived at our Boston office. He walked into my office, holding a folder, his expression tense. As I looked up, our eyes met, and I saw the recognition hit. "Emily," he said quietly, stunned. I gave a soft, steady smile. "Welcome to Pacific Genomics," I said. "I'll be reviewing the financials for this quarter. Looking forward to working with you." He froze. His face drained of color. No one in my family had ever asked what I really did. They never knew I was the co-founder of a major biotech firm. They had always assumed I worked a desk job in someone else's company. I said nothing more. I slid the quarterly budget across the table. Liam took it in silence and left. I leaned back in my chair. I wasn't happy. I wasn't angry. I just felt the balance finally shift, quietly, irreversibly. The truth had spoken, and this time, I didn't need to say a word. On the morning of my mother's birthday, the Boston sky was cloaked in heavy fog. The streets looked blurred, as if even the city was bracing for the unraveling ahead. I poured myself black coffee and sat by the window, watching the empty yard below. I didn't post a message. I didn't call. I wasn't going to pretend. At exactly 9 a.m., the first text came in, from my mother. "Emily, sweetheart, I think the power's out. Can you check? Today is important." I placed the phone face down on the table. Same tone, sweet, casual, like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't been told that my presence would ruin the day. 15 minutes later, another text. From Dad this time, still no power. Water's off too. Is there an issue with the bills? Call the provider, now. Short, cold. Still no mention of the words that cut me off from the family. Just another order, like I was still the household manager. I took a slow breath. For 2 years, I had never missed a single payment. Electric, water, internet, cable. I had canceled them all that night, after Dad hung up and made it clear I didn't belong. And now, on the day Claire was introducing Liam to the family, the house had no power, no water, no Wi-Fi. Exactly as I knew it would be. By 11 a.m., the messages started pouring in. "Mom, Emily, please. I'm begging you. Guests are arriving. Can you help just this once? Dad, still no electricity. We can't cook. Where are you? Handle it. Claire, seriously, Emily. This is Mom's big day. She's in tears. There's no internet. I can't call anyone. Please stop being selfish." I leaned back in my chair. My coffee had gone cold, and I felt nothing. No vindication, no victory, just silence. A silence I had learned to live in. Then the phone lit up again. A video call from Aunt Sharon. She was the only one in the family who still sent holiday messages, even when I rarely replied. I paused, then answered. Her tired face appeared on the screen. lit only by a flashlight in a dark kitchen. "Emily," she said gently, "your mom's in a panic. The house is a mess. No one knows what to do." I said nothing. I just looked at her. She hesitated, then said, not accusing and not defending, just soft, honest. "You've never missed your mom's birthday before. I know you must have your reasons. But Emily, can you just say something?" I took a slow breath, making sure my voice didn't shake. "My dad told me I made the family look bad. He said if I insisted on coming home, I shouldn't call him my father anymore." I paused. "What would you do after hearing that?" Aunt Sharon went still. Her face shifted instantly. From her phone speaker, I could hear the voices in the background. My mother's voice rose, loud and dismissive. "She's probably sulking. Who would be so heartless to do this today?" Then Claire's sharper voice cut in. "Liam's almost here. Someone better have called the power company. I can't believe Emily would do this today of all days." I smiled faintly. It wasn't joy, just resignation. Aunt Sharon had heard it all. She didn't defend them. She didn't say a word. And then, without warning, the screen shifted. A new face appeared on the call. Liam. Same suit, same well-groomed look from his resume photo. He stared at the screen. Recognition hit instantly. "Emily," he said aloud, confused but certain. The room went silent. "You're Emily Warren, the one who runs Pacific Genomics." I nodded slowly, meeting his eyes without flinching. A long pause followed. Then Liam turned around to the room behind him. "She's my direct supervisor. She approved my transfer to Boston. She co-founded the company." The silence that followed was heavier than anything I could have scripted. Claire's mouth hung open. My parents stopped moving. Not one sound. I kept my voice calm. "Hope today's big introduction goes well." Then I ended the call. I placed my phone face down on the table and looked out the window. The dim afternoon light filtered weakly through the clouds, and for a moment everything was utterly quiet. No voices, no follow-ups, no apologies, just me, and a strange, clear feeling. Relief. The truth had surfaced, not because of anything I did, but because they had brought it into the light themselves. I didn't need to expose anyone. I hadn't planned anything. All I had done was sit still and let reality unfold. Liam had confirmed it for them. I was his boss. I was the co-founder, not the invisible office girl they had always assumed I was. And suddenly, their kitchen had become a stage. One where every mask dropped in real time. Claire, the same sister who once whispered to our mother that I should choose a job easier to explain, was now standing next to a birthday cake no one had even cut. She had worked so hard to create the illusion: charming boyfriend, perfect day, flawless presentation. And yet it was that same boyfriend who called me boss in front of them all. I could imagine it all clearly, like I was watching a replay. My mom flustered, nearly dropping the cake tray. My father gripping the table edge, his face flushed with confusion. The relatives only ever present for food and gossip, looking around uncomfortably, unsure how to react. And Aunt Sharon still holding the phone, her gaze shifting, not confused now, but respectful. She didn't say anything, just gave me a quiet nod before ending the call. Later that evening, the first message came from Claire. It was long, scattered, anger tangled with disbelief. "You knew, didn't you? You let that happen during the party. Mom's been crying all night. Liam is confused. Why would you do that, Emily? That was cruel." The message stayed unread for a while. I made ginger tea and sat on the couch, letting the steam soften the tension in my chest. I didn't feel triumphant, but I didn't feel guilty either. After a while, I opened the message and replied with just a few lines. "You say I was cruel, but I stayed home. I didn't make the video call. I didn't tell anyone my title. I didn't say a single word. And if the truth alone was enough to ruin the party, maybe the party was never built on anything solid in the first place." I hit send. I wasn't waiting for a response. 30 minutes later, another message arrived. From my mom, short and sharp. "I never expected you to choose this way to get back at the family." I leaned back and closed my eyes. Get back? Is that what they thought this was? Just payback? Revenge? No. All I had done was remember what it felt like. To be shut out. To be told that my job, my presence, my identity, wasn't worthy of family. I remembered quietly covering dozens of bills over 2 years, without a single "how are you?" or "thank you." I remembered how hard I tried to be accepted, to be loved. And now, I was done trying. Around 10 p.m., an email arrived from Liam. Subject: Respect Emily. I'm sorry I didn't know sooner. I truly respect you, for your work, and for the way you said nothing today. I've never felt more ashamed, but not because of you. I read it slowly, then typed my reply. Liam, you don't need to apologize. Everyone chooses how they see others. I never bring personal matters into work, but I hope now you understand. Sometimes silence is the greatest strength. I hit send, powered off my screen, and turned my phone face down. Tomorrow, I'd still walk to my office as usual. Reports, meetings, schedules. Only now there was one small difference. They, the people who once dismissed me, finally knew who I was. And I hadn't shouted. I hadn't explained. I had simply lived, and that silence made them go quiet. Next morning, sunlight warmed the glass walls of my office. It was calm, like the world paused for a breath. I logged into my computer. A single unread message waited. Subject: Apology and goodbye. From Liam Prescott Emily. I couldn't sleep. Last night shouldn't have happened publicly, but it brought clarity. I'm not ashamed you're Claire's sister. I'm ashamed I didn't see her clearly sooner. I can't stay in a relationship where there's no basic respect. I'm ending things with Claire today. Thank you for your strength, and for the way you lead. Liam. I leaned back in my chair. Not happy Claire was dumped. Not sad either. Just right. Like finally someone on the outside saw what I'd lived through all those years. No reply needed. 2 hours later, as I was reviewing finance summaries, my phone buzzed. Claire. Emily, I know you're busy. Please talk to Liam. He's misunderstanding everything. I didn't respond. 5 minutes later, another message. You're his boss. You have influence. If you say something, he'll reconsider. I stood, walked to the window, and watched the traffic move below. All those years, not one word when I was hurting. No check-ins. No encouragement. Now, suddenly I was the one being asked to fix her falling world. I returned to my desk, and typed Liam didn't leave because of what I said. He left because of who you are. And maybe for the first time, he finally saw it. Claire didn't reply at once. An hour later, you're right. But I don't want to lose him. I'll change. Please, just this once. I left it unread. Not out of anger, but because I'd moved past the explaining. That evening, as I walked to the parking lot, the spring air was still cold, but the sky, it glowed with a calm orange, like a quiet celebration. For the first time in years, I felt light. I hadn't sought revenge. I had simply allowed the truth to speak. And Claire, after building her moment around image, had been undone by reality. That night, I played an old playlist. Songs I once used to drown in, when the startup days felt like uphill battles. But now, the same music felt different. Like a quiet anthem. A reminder that I had stepped out of the shadows, not by yelling, but by standing still while others revealed who they were. And that was something no one in my family ever expected. I didn't need validation. I just needed peace. A week later, on a slow Sunday, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, but when I peeked through the peephole, my heart skipped. My parents. Mom held a small bag. Dad had his arms folded. His face was stiff but less cold than before. I opened the door, said nothing. Hi honey, Mom said, her voice tired. Can we talk for a bit? I stepped aside. No hugs, no warm greetings. Just silence from the hallway to the living room. I poured water, set 2 glasses, and waited. Dad started. About your mom's birthday. I said some things I shouldn't have. I stayed quiet. He cleared his throat. Claire's a mess, since the breakup. Your mom's been crying for days. We just wanted to talk like a family. I nodded slightly, waiting. Then, as expected, my mom placed the bag on the table and pulled out a sheet. Well, we have a small proposal. She hesitated. You're stable now. Your job is good. If you could help us with a monthly contribution, say $2,000, it'd just cover the basics. Utilities, insurance, a bit of savings. I looked up. $2,000 every month. Dad jumped in. It's not much. Not for someone like you. We're family, Emily. I leaned forward. What about Claire? Mom faltered. She's not doing well. After Liam, work's been rough. We can't pressure her. I laughed softly, not bitter, just because it was so predictable. Claire couldn't be pressured. I always could. I looked them straight in the eyes. If Claire agrees to contribute her share, $1,000, I'll consider it. On one condition. I slid the printed sheet back. I want a contract. When both of you pass, the house and all assets go to me. Silence. Dad's face flushed. You're giving conditions to your own parents. No, I replied calmly. I'm setting principles. I already spent nearly $16,000 on this family over 2 years, quietly. No one said thank you. If I continue helping, it won't be through guilt or unspoken debt. Mom turned to Dad. Her voice wavered. Maybe we should think about it. But he slammed his hand on the table. Glasses rattled. We raised you for 20 years, and now you demand a contract. Unbelievable. I stayed seated. You raised me, yes, but not as a loan to be repaid. And I won't stay silent anymore. He tried to speak again, but paused, then stopped completely. Mom touched his arm. Let's go. I stood too, walked them to the door. No hugs, no goodbye. When the door closed, only the wind remained. Soft, cold, quiet. Another chapter closed. But this time, I'd written the last line. They never contacted me again. No apology, no follow-up, not even anger, just silence, from people who only speak when they're in control. But I kept going. Coffee, strategy calls, closing deals with partners who once doubted me. And I stopped feeling guilty, stopped being the backup wallet, stopped thinking saying no made me a bad daughter. Because if love is measured only by money, that's not love, that's a transaction. I began cutting the invisible strings. No more family photos as wallpaper. No birthday reminders. No holiday gifts just in case. No hovering over texts hoping they'd apologize. I placed the period. They never started the sentence. One afternoon, Liam came into the meeting room with the latest report. He worked respectfully, kept boundaries. We never spoke of Claire. Some things, once understood, don't need to be said. Later I stopped by a quiet cafe, sat by the window. On the wall, home is not always a place, sometimes it's a choice. And for the first time, I truly understood. I used to believe that if I stayed quiet long enough, I'd be accepted. But the truth is, if you let people get used to disrespecting you, they'll start calling it love. They'll expect your sacrifices as obligations, and your silence as agreement. I chose to stand up, not to fight them, but to finally protect myself. And if someone asks, Emily, do you regret not helping your parents when they needed you? My answer, I regret not realizing sooner that I deserved more than that. Real family sees you as a person, not a wallet, not a fallback, not someone they only remember when it's convenient. And if they can't, then you walk away, and you walk away, proud. Are you okay? I did not choose family in the traditional sense. I chose myself. What about you? Do you think I was too cold? Or did I finally learn how to love myself at the right time? Share your thoughts in the comments, because sometimes your story might be the light someone else needs when they are struggling between duty and freedom. And if you have ever felt alone in your own family, believe me, you are not alone. Emily's story is a powerful reminder that no one is obligated to sacrifice themselves for a relationship that only carries the label family, but lacks respect. When you learn to set boundaries, choose self-love, and stop letting your kindness be taken for granted, that is not selfishness, that is growth. Emily did not seek revenge. She chose dignified silence to reaffirm her worth. And sometimes, the firmest action is the very first step toward real peace. What do you think of Emily's choice? Was she too harsh, or simply protecting herself after years of being hurt? Share your thoughts below, and do not forget to subscribe the channel for more deep and meaningful stories about love, respect, and finding your voice.